The endless Martian sands glowed under a pale blue sun, stretching out in all directions like a vast ocean of rust. James Dalton adjusted the visor of his exosuit, its readouts blinking steadily with atmospheric and temperature data. A geologist by trade, he had spent the past 4 years charting the Martian surface for Earth Command, scouring its barren landscapes for rare minerals that could support Earth's faltering ecosystems. "Almost done for the day," James muttered, his voice muffled inside the helmet. The rover hummed quietly behind him, its storage compartments already filled with samples from the morning. As he scanned the ground, his equipment picked up an anomalous energy reading. James froze. Energy spikes were unheard of in this sector of Mars, and his instruments never lied. The reading pulsed with an irregular rhythm, like a heartbeat. Intrigued, he followed the signal, cresting a dune until he saw it a small, shimmering object half buried in the sand. The artifact was unlike anything he had seen before. It glowed faintly, emitting a soft hum that resonated in his bones. It wasn't just alien, it was ancient. "Earth Command, this is Dalton," he said, activating his comm link. "I've found something. Transmitting visuals now." As he moved closer to inspect it, a low vibration rippled through the air. The artifact's glow intensified, and the hum became a deafening roar. James barely had time to shield his eyes before a column of light erupted around him, enveloping him in an impenetrable white haze. When the light faded, he was no longer on Mars. James found himself aboard a vast, dimly lit spacecraft. The walls glistened with a strange, organic texture, and the air felt thick, almost alive. His hands were bound by energy shackles that hummed with the same alien frequency as the artifact. A dozen figures loomed before him, their forms partially obscured in shadow. As his eyes adjusted, he took in their appearance. The Zaltraxians. The towering, insectoid creatures were infamous in human folklore, whispered about in stories of interstellar raids and ghostly disappearances. They stood over 7 feet tall, their shimmering carapaces reflecting the dim green light of the chamber. Their large, multifaceted eyes regarded him coldly, and their mandibles clicked in unison, producing an eerie, rhythmic sound that was both language and command. One stepped forward, clearly their leader, distinguished by intricate golden markings etched into his exoskeleton. "You have desecrated the sacred artifact of our gods," the leader hissed in perfect English, the translation device embedded in his thorax glowing faintly. "You will pay for this crime with your life." James's heart pounded in his chest. "Wait. I didn't know." Silence, the leader snapped. "Ignorance does not absolve you." The Zaltraxians parted, revealing a massive viewport that overlooked their homeworld. The planet Zaltraxia was a swirling mass of green and black, its atmosphere crackling with electric storms. "You will be sacrificed during the great celestial alignment," the leader continued. "It is the will of the gods." James's breath quickened as the reality of his situation set in. He was no longer a scientist exploring the red sands of Mars. He was a prisoner, destined to be offered as a blood price for crimes he didn't understand. As the Zaltraxians dragged him away to a holding chamber, James couldn't help but glance back at the artifact, now resting in the hands of one of his captors. A part of him wondered if he should have left it buried. Another part whispered that it had chosen him for a reason. He didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning of his journey, a journey that would test his courage, his wit, and his will to survive. Let me know if you'd like further refinement or expansion. James sat in the dimly lit cell aboard the Zaltraxian cruiser, his mind racing. The walls seemed to pulse faintly with life, like the beating of a heart. The silence was broken only by the distant hum of alien machinery. He replayed the words of the Zaltraxian leader over and over in his head, sacrificed during the great celestial alignment. He had been an explorer all his life, from Earth's deepest caves to Mars's harshest deserts, but never had he felt so utterly out of his depth. Yet, amidst the fear and despair, a small ember of defiance burned. He wasn't ready to die, not here, not like this. The door to his cell slid open with a hiss, and 2 Zaltraxian guards entered. Their multifaceted eyes glimmered as they gestured for him to rise. "The Oracle awaits," one of them rasped. James swallowed hard and followed them down a corridor that seemed to stretch endlessly, its walls alive with swirling, bioluminescent patterns. The air grew heavier with each step, as though the ship itself was bearing down on him. Finally, they entered a vast chamber, its ceiling arching impossibly high. At its center stood the Oracle, a massive, amorphous entity suspended in a column of shimmering energy. It appeared as a swirling mass of light and shadow, constantly shifting and reforming. Its presence was overwhelming, both majestic and terrifying. The Zaltraxian leader, flanked by a dozen priests adorned in intricate robes, approached the Oracle and bowed deeply. "Great Oracle," he intoned, "we bring you the Defiler, the human who has desecrated the sacred relic. We seek your wisdom. Does he deserve to die as penance for his crime?" James stepped forward, his legs trembling but his jaw set. The Oracle's energy swirled faster, and a deep, resonant voice filled the chamber, speaking directly into the minds of everyone present. "Silence," it commanded, and the room fell deathly still. The Oracle turned its attention to James, its shifting form seeming to pierce directly into his soul. James felt an intense pressure in his chest, as though the air itself had been sucked away. Images began to flood his mind, memories of his childhood on Earth, his adventures on Mars, the moment he discovered the artifact. But then the vision shifted. He saw glimpses of things he couldn't understand, alien worlds bathed in golden light, towering structures that defied gravity, and a web of interconnected stars glowing with an energy that felt alive. "You are an anomaly," the Oracle said, its voice tinged with curiosity. "A convergence of paths long foretold." James blinked, trying to comprehend the cryptic words. "What does that mean?" he managed to say, his voice hoarse. The Oracle's energy pulsed, and the room seemed to darken. "You bear a cosmic signature," it declared, "one that resonates with the ancient prophecies of our kind. You are no mere intruder, you are the key." The Zaltraxian leader straightened, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "This cannot be. He is a human, a weak, insignificant race unworthy of such a destiny." The Oracle's voice grew louder, shaking the walls of the chamber. "The relic chose him. The threads of fate are not yours to command, Zaltar. The key must be tested, not destroyed." The leader's mandibles clicked furiously, but he bowed his head. "As you will, great Oracle." James exhaled shakily, his mind racing. He wasn't sure if he should feel relieved or terrified. "What kind of test?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The Oracle's form shifted, glowing brighter. "You will face the trials of resonance," it proclaimed. "Tests of mind, body, and spirit. Should you succeed, you will prove yourself worthy of the destiny foretold. Should you fail..." The Oracle's glow dimmed ominously. "You will perish, as all pretenders before you." The Zaltraxian guards grabbed James's arms and began to lead him out of the chamber. As they did, the Oracle's voice echoed in his mind one last time. "Do not fear, human. For in you lies the potential to reshape the stars." James's thoughts churned as he was dragged away. What had he stumbled into? And more importantly, what was this destiny the Oracle spoke of? One thing was clear: his survival now hinged on passing the Oracle's trials. Whatever they were, he would need to summon every ounce of courage, intelligence, and resilience he possessed. His life, and perhaps much more, depended on it. Let me know if you'd like further development or adjustments. The chamber was vast, its walls lined with swirling patterns of bioluminescent light. James stood at its center, encased in an energy field that shimmered faintly. Around him, a semicircle of Zaltraxian elders observed silently, their multifaceted eyes glinting like polished obsidian. The Oracle's voice boomed across the chamber, resonating in the very marrow of James's bones. "The trials of resonance begin now. Your fate, and the fate of many, lies in your hands." The energy field dissipated with a low hum, and the ground beneath James shifted. He stumbled, finding himself in a completely different environment, an arid desert with twin suns blazing overhead. The sky, a chaotic swirl of red and yellow, stretched endlessly in all directions. Trial 1, the trial of endurance, the oracle's voice echoed from nowhere and everywhere. James shaded his eyes against the harsh light and scanned the horizon. In the distance, a jagged mountain range rose from the desert floor, its peaks glowing faintly with a greenish hue. You must reach the summit before the sun set, the oracle instructed. James set off, the scorching heat immediately pressing down on him. The sand was loose, sliding under his boots with every step, and the twin suns felt as though they were actively conspiring to sap his energy. He trudged forward, his breathing heavy, his muscles aching. Hours passed, though it felt like days. The sand shifted unpredictably, forming sudden whirlpools that threatened to drag him down. James navigated them with care, using his geologist's instincts to read the patterns in the terrain. He rationed his water, careful not to drink too much too quickly. As the suns dipped closer to the horizon, the summit loomed ahead. The final stretch was a near-vertical climb, the rock face sharp and unforgiving. James began to scale it, his hands bleeding as he gripped jagged edges. The heat gave way to biting cold as the light dimmed, but he pressed on, driven by sheer willpower. With a final heave, he pulled himself over the edge and collapsed on the summit. The oracle's voice resonated in his mind, softer this time. You have endured. The trial of endurance is complete. The world dissolved around him, and he found himself back in the original chamber. Trial 2, the trial of intellect, the oracle announced. The chamber morphed again, transforming into a labyrinth of crystalline walls that refracted light into dazzling, disorienting patterns. A holographic map appeared briefly before him, showing the path to the exit. It disappeared as quickly as it had come. James gritted his teeth and began to navigate the maze, mentally reconstructing the map. The corridors shifted unpredictably, some dead-ending while others branched into complex webs. Strange symbols adorned the walls, glowing faintly. As he moved deeper into the maze, the symbols began to glow brighter. Then the traps began. A sudden blast of energy shot past his shoulder, scorching the crystalline wall. James threw himself to the ground, his heart pounding. More blasts followed, emerging from hidden nodes in the walls. He noticed that the glowing symbols corresponded to the trap's locations, giving him just enough warning to dodge. He made his way carefully, using the symbols as his guide. Each step brought him closer to the exit, but the traps grew more complex, combining energy blasts with collapsing walls and shifting pathways. Finally, he reached the end, emerging into an open chamber. The oracle's voice echoed again. Your intellect has guided you. The trial of intellect is complete. The final trial began almost immediately. Trial 3, the trial of spirit, the oracle intoned. This time, the environment was neither harsh nor confusing. James stood in a serene meadow under a twilight sky. A cool breeze carried the scent of alien flowers, and the gentle hum of life surrounded him. But something felt wrong. Shadows flickered at the edges of his vision, taking the forms of people he knew, his parents, his friends, even his long-lost sister. They spoke to him, their voices laced with sadness. Why didn't you save us, James? One voice asked. You've always been alone. You'll fail, whispered another. The figures grew more insistent, their voices louder, their presence more overwhelming. They crowded around him, clawing at his confidence, feeding on his doubts. James fell to his knees, gripping his head as the voices threatened to drown him. But deep within, a flicker of resolve remained. I'm not defined by my failures, he whispered, his voice trembling but firm. I'm here because I choose to fight for something greater. The shadows paused, their forms wavering. James stood, his chest heaving. I've made mistakes, but they don't control me. I will move forward. With those words, the shadows dissolved, and the meadow brightened. The oracle's voice returned, this time softer and filled with a sense of approval. You have faced your inner self and emerged stronger. The trial of spirit is complete. James was back in the oracle's chamber. The Zaltraxian elders watched in stunned silence. The oracle's light grew brighter, illuminating the entire room. You have succeeded, human. Few have endured these trials. You are indeed the key, as foretold. James stood, battered and weary but alive. He didn't fully understand what the oracle meant, but he knew one thing: he had earned their respect. The oracle's voice echoed once more, this time directed to all present. Prepare him for what comes next. He is not only a survivor but a harbinger of change. As the Zaltraxian guards escorted him out, James couldn't help but wonder, what exactly had he unlocked, and what destiny awaited him? Let me know if you'd like further refinement or continuation. The Zaltraxian council chamber was a sight to behold. Enormous pillars of living crystal spiraled upward, their surfaces rippling with energy. The room was circular, with tiered seating occupied by council members adorned in ceremonial garb. At the center stood James, a solitary figure amidst the alien grandeur, his presence both an anomaly and a symbol of the prophecy that had shaken the Zaltraxian order. The oracle loomed above in its shimmering column of energy, casting a radiant glow that seemed to penetrate every corner of the chamber. The silence was heavy, charged with anticipation. Let it be known, the oracle began, its voice resonating with authority, that the human, James Dalton, has completed the trials of resonance. He has proven his endurance, intellect, and spirit. He is the key foretold in the ancient texts, the harbinger of unity and change. A murmur rippled through the council, some members nodding in reluctant agreement while others bristled with indignation. Among the latter was General Kravax, his golden-marked exoskeleton gleaming as he rose from his seat. This is an outrage! Kravax roared, his mandibles clicking furiously. This human, this fragile, insignificant creature cannot be the one destined to lead us. The oracle must be mistaken. The oracle's light dimmed slightly, its form shifting as if in response to the challenge. The threads of fate are not yours to unravel, Kravax. The relic chose him, and the trials confirmed his worth. You will not defy this decree. Kravax glared at James, his multifaceted eyes reflecting a simmering hatred. If this human is truly the key, then let him prove it in battle. Let him face me, and we shall see if he is worthy. James's heart sank. He was no warrior. He had relied on his wits and willpower to survive the trials, but a fight against a towering Zaltraxian general seemed like certain death. The oracle, however, intervened. The key's path is not one of violence, it declared. Yet if you seek to challenge destiny, Kravax, you may do so. But be warned, the outcome will not be as you expect. Kravax sneered, his pride overriding his reason. So be it. Let the human and I face each other in the arena. The arena was a massive, circular space carved from the crystalline core of Zaltraxia itself. Thousands of Zaltraxians filled the stands, their clicking mandibles creating a deafening hum of anticipation. At the center stood James, clad in a rudimentary combat suit provided by his captors, and Kravax, who towered over him in full ceremonial armor. Any final words, human? Kravax hissed, his claws flexing menacingly. James tightened his grip on the energy blade he'd been handed. Yeah, he replied, trying to mask his fear with a hint of defiance. You're really overcompensating with that armor. Kravax roared in fury and lunged. The crowd erupted as the battle began. James dodged the first strike, barely avoiding the claws that sliced through the air with terrifying speed. He scrambled to his feet, his mind racing. He couldn't overpower Kravax, but perhaps he could outthink him. The arena's surface was uneven, dotted with jagged crystalline formations. As Kravax charged again, James maneuvered toward one of the larger formations, using it as cover. Kravak smashed through it effortlessly, but the shards that exploded outward gave James an idea. As the battle continued, James used the terrain to his advantage, baiting Kravak into overextending and exploiting his slower movements. Each time Kravak attacked, James struck back with calculated precision, chipping away at the general's confidence and composure. Finally, Kravak roared in frustration and launched himself into a reckless charge. James, anticipating the move, sidestepped at the last moment, sending Kravak crashing into a massive crystal formation. The impact destabilized the structure, causing it to collapse on top of him. The arena fell silent as the dust settled. Kravak lay immobilized beneath the rubble, his armor cracked and his pride shattered. James stood over him, battered but victorious. Back in the council chamber, the oracle's voice was filled with quiet triumph. The key has proven his strength not through brute force, but through ingenuity and resolve. Kravak, you have dishonored yourself by challenging fate. Kravak, humbled and defeated, bowed his head. I was wrong, he admitted grudgingly. The oracle turned its attention to James. You have passed every test, human. But your journey is far from over. The destiny you have unlocked will require more than trials and battles. It will demand courage, wisdom, and a willingness to forge alliances where none existed before. James, still catching his breath, nodded. I don't know what this destiny is, he admitted, but I'll face it. Not because I'm some chosen one, but because it's the right thing to do. The council members exchanged glances, their skepticism giving way to cautious respect. The oracle's light pulsed brightly, filling the chamber with warmth. Then it is decided, the oracle proclaimed. James Dalton, the key, shall serve as an emissary of unity between our peoples. Together, we will reshape the stars. As the Zaltraxians began to chant in their alien tongue, James felt a sense of purpose settle over him. He didn't fully understand what lay ahead, but for the first time since his capture, he felt something unexpected, hope. The story closes on James standing at the edge of the oracle's chamber, gazing out at the vast expanse of Zaltraxia's skies. The stars shimmered with a newfound brilliance, hinting at the cosmic tapestry he was now a part of. His journey had only just begun. Let me know if you'd like further refinement or expansion.